Good morning and welcome to Leading Edge. I'm Craig Thomas in for Jerry Anderson. This morning we are going to talk to an organization that helps our part of Ohio bring jobs and big businesses to the area. But we start with the #1 political issue right now in our area and all over the country. More than a week after the elementary school shooting tragedy in Connecticut, school safety, gun laws, that entire debate. We will have a guest who thinks arming teachers is a good idea. But we are going to start with an overview of where things stand right now. Certainly an emotional issue, and we want to set the stage. Here are some facts about the entire situation. We have had 62 mass shootings in the last 30 years in the United States after the one in Connecticut. Half of them occurred either at schools or workplaces. The shooters combined to carry 142 guns. 2/3 of those weapons used were obtained legally, more than 3/4. 44 of the shooters were white males. That's the majority. The majority of the shooters were also mentally ill. And many people, many schools in our area have been on edge this week. Several schools, including Whitmer High School in Toledo, put on lockdown during the week because of threats. Police saying none of the threats ended up being credible, but still heightened alert. Worries about security. In Michigan, at least 20 schools closed on Thursday and Friday as a precaution because of threats. And now we will broaden this out a little bit and give us some numbers about gun ownership and gun violence in this country. We have more guns here in America than anywhere else in the world. The U.S. has the highest gun ownership rate, approximately 280 million guns in the U.S. Now, over 30,000 Americans die each year because of guns, a combination of homicide, suicide, and accident. Many more than that are injured. 73,505 Americans were treated in hospital emergency rooms for non-fatal gunshot wounds in 2010. Here locally, in Ohio, 344 people were killed by guns last year. That's actually down 11% from the year before. In Michigan, 450 people were killed by guns. That's actually down 9%. So gun rights, gun control, the possibility of new gun laws, those topics are certainly now in the spotlight. They certainly were for politicians this week. Let's listen.
This is not some Washington commission. This is not something where folks are going to be studying the issue for 6 months and publishing a report that gets read and then pushed aside. This is a team that has a very specific task to pull together real reforms right now.
If people were armed, not just a police officer, but other school officials who were trained and chose to have a weapon, certainly there had been an opportunity to stop aggressors coming into the school. So I think that's a reasonable discussion.
And there's so much focus on school safety, on gun laws this week that a lot of people who aren't politicians, they're not directly involved, they've offered their 2 cents. Winthrop University played basketball at Ohio State this week. After the game, Winthrop's head coach, his name is Pat Kelsey, he said this.
And I don't know what needs to be done. I'm not smart enough to know what needs to be done, okay? I know this country's got issues. Is it a gun issue? Is it a mental illness issue? Or is it a society that has lost the understanding that decent human values are important? And our leaders, I didn't vote for President Obama, okay? But you know what? He's my president now. He's my leader. I need him to step up, okay? Mr. Boehner, the Speaker of the House, he's a Xavier guy. He's a Cincinnati guy, okay? He needs to step up.
Pat Kelsey actually is from Cincinnati as well. Meanwhile, in the actor world, people also were speaking. Actor Samuel L. Jackson said this: I don't know it's about more gun control. I grew up in the South with guns everywhere, and we never shot anyone. This is about people who aren't taught the value of life. So that's the background. So many opinions, so much intensity, so much focus, really, this week on this. And we do want to mention, we invited many folks on who support tighter gun control. Local teachers unions we invited, political scientists we invited, but for various reasons, nobody could come on. Next, we will talk to a man who trains people who carry guns, and he says teachers should be trained to shoot. That's when we return on Leading Edge. Thank you for joining us again on Leading Edge. The main topic today, gun violence, gun rights, gun control, all of those things. And we are joined by Tom Urbanski. He's a gun expert, and he teaches classes so that people can get trained and they can carry concealed carry licenses.
Yep.
So thanks for coming in.
You're welcome.
First of all, what has business been like? What kind of calls have you been getting since this happened over a week ago?
Well, I would guess Saturday after the actual incident, I must have received triple the normal amount of calls. I found them on my cell phone. I do the classes all day, Saturday and Sunday, so I had to wait till evening to respond. Not only people buying classes, but people buying gift certificates for loved ones because they're concerned that all of a sudden guns are going to be not available. I'm getting calls for guns too. Apparently people misread my ad and they're calling for strange things like, how about an AK-15? They're apparently not even gun-oriented people.
I don't think that exists,
who are
right?
panicking. Yeah, they're thinking AK-47 or an AR-15. But yeah, everybody's going nuts out there. I took a call 5 minutes ago out in the lobby, essentially, from somebody looking for a AR-15 because they say no gun dealer hasn't left anymore.
You say that people are scared. Are they, most of the people you deal with, are they scared that someone's going to come in and take all their guns away and they'll never, I guess, what are they also wanting the guns for?
Well, the problem is, and it's happened now 3 times, you had the Clinton assault weapon ban, I think that was mid-90s, somewhere in there. People overnight took up all the assault weapons they could buy before the law passed. You had essentially the 2008 election. People realized it probably wasn't going to be a Republican in the office. They immediately thought all Democrats tend to have gun laws and initiate them, the Clinton ban being one of them. So for almost 2 years, you couldn't find guns on the shelf, let alone ammunition, and that's happened again.
But even with those gun laws, let's say that we get new gun legislation, there's no talk from anyone except true way to the left folks that there are going to be any bans on guns.
Well, yeah, the difficulty is this whole talk about gun laws. You've got 285 million guns already in the hands of 300 million United States citizens. Any attempt to ban any of those guns, including assault rifles, are sort of a waste of time. You've already let the horse out of the barn. Now is not the time to close the barn door. So what people are concerned about, the only viable step to eliminate the gun violence would be to literally try to get back all that 285 million guns, and that's what people are worried about.
Now, that has happened in other countries. They've had massive gun buybacks. That has worked. Specifically, I'm talking about Australia. I've read a lot in the last week about it, that they had a huge problem with mass shootings. They bought a lot of bought tons of guns back, and they still have gun rights. They still have guns. They don't have the similar problem. Do you think that some of these gun owners would give their guns back, or they just? I guess my thing is, if they're not going to give their guns back and they already have them, then they should be.
You'd think, but a whole bunch of people, well, the typical caller that's calling me now are in their 20s. They're not an old fart like me who has had guns for 60 years. They're just getting into it, and they're afraid they can't get a gun or won't be able to get the AR-15 they want or the AK-47 they want if we wait a couple of months, because everybody's talking about putting whatever plan into effect very quickly. And it's sort of a problem with that whole idea. If you're doing anything as an emotional response to the 20 kids that got killed, people who make emotionally based decisions make mistakes. So that new law is frightening people because we don't know what it is, and they're just worried that some of their rights are going to be taken away from them, so they grab them before the government can keep them from getting those guns.
Now, some politicians, including a sheriff here in Ohio, have said that we should arm teachers.
Yeah.
You think that is?
As I mentioned to Nicole yesterday, if you would have rephrased the term 3 teachers ran towards the sound of the noise in that school and they ended up getting killed, if you were to change that to 3 armed teachers ran towards the sound of that gunfire and killed the bad guy, maybe you'd have 15, 20 students that weren't killed. The only problem with safe zones is the only place that's safe for is a bad guy to come in and kill anybody they want without fear of getting any sort of, how can I put it, being shot back at.
But playing devil's advocate here, yes, maybe in a particular instance there would be less bloodshed, but statistically speaking, more guns does mean more violence. So maybe in this case they wouldn't the person might not have brought a gun, but just guns in a school in general, you don't think that would create more violence? A lot of times people use guns to commit suicide. If a teacher,
Sure.
right? So isn't that the...
I can show you cops that have gone nuts and killed
Sure,
people.
exactly.
You'll see articles like that. But again, we're reacting to one strange incident or one or two that may occur. But if you've got a typical law-abiding citizen that's a teacher and they are well-trained and they know how to handle guns, then them having a gun is a deterrent to somebody coming in that classroom. Now, I saw in the paper today, apparently we're even thinking about hiring retired law enforcement to put in schools. That's another option. But if the only person that can walk in that door is the bad guy with an intent to kill and he's the only one that's armed, that is a perfect shooting gallery for him without fear of repercussion.
Do you think that the majority of gun owners would support some type of stricter gun legislation, stricter gun training?
Well, the training requirement is pretty important. Right now I teach CCW classes. There's 48 states in the union that allow you to carry a concealed weapon, but there's only 24 of them that even require you to be trained. You can go into Alabama, Georgia, even states like Indiana, and you don't have to be able to spell gun. And for $70, they do a background check, give you a gun. And if you weren't brought up in a household that used guns, had hunters, had shooters, and you're unfamiliar with them, I had to be 3 or 4 years ago, somebody asked me how many CCW holders have probably shot somebody, and I said, I don't know, but I'm guessing 80% of those who ever shot somebody shot their spouse, they shot their kid, they shot the next door neighbor, showing off the new gun.
Do you think, though, that there might be a middle ground where it's not yes guns, no guns, and continue kind of political, very harsh treatment towards each other, that there could be, you know what, this makes sense?
You've got a whole bunch of people that are sitting in the middle that are reasonable, but you do have the extremists on both ends of this gun issue. So yeah, you're going to have some pro-gun people refusing to even think about training because that's just one more step. That's an infringement on their Second Amendment rights, and they're going to fight against it. I think at least gun education has to be done, should be done, but that's still not going to protect you from the guy who goes nuts, who has a gun, who can, right now you can go into any city in the United States, sit down in a taxi cab and ask that taxi cab driver where you can buy a gun, and I bet you even in Chicago, which is the worst gun control laws you'll find anywhere, you'll find a gun within a half an hour.
But in most other countries, you would not be able to.
Well, in most countries you could in the black market. They're not legal, but you can get guns. There are shootings that happen even in England because, believe me,
but rare.
guns are
very
rare.
Okay,
yep.
So, but you do think that there might be some agreement if I'm not going to call them fringe, but if the folks who feel on the extreme of both sides are not part of the...
Yeah, you're not going to get either of them to ever agree to something in the middle. They're both adamant against any gun law, and on the other side, they don't want anybody to own a gun at all. You're never going to see that. But look at the option, though. You ban all guns, and that guy still wanted to go kill people. All he had to do was go to a gas station with a bottle of wine and fill that bottle up with gasoline, and now toss a couple of Molotov cocktails into those classrooms, so now you have burning dead kids. But so you're really not going to solve the problem. If somebody wants to kill somebody, they're going to do it by whatever.
But those types of incidents do happen much less frequently. So there's no way, I don't think anyone would say we can stop all violence or all mass killings, but I do think that that something needs to be done to stop.
If it can be done, but logically it's never been proven you can do something. If you ban guns, they are going to turn to gasoline. I mean, guns are easily available, that's why it's being used now. You had, what, 2 students? I got a call today from somebody looking to buy a gun. He told me 2 students got stabbed last night over at the University of Toledo. They're just going to change the weapon of availability. So you ban the guns, believe me, they're going to find some other way to do it.
Well, I thank you for coming in and sharing your expertise and your opinion. Certainly this is going to be a topic that folks discuss for weeks and months and years to come. So thanks again.